Paul Daner, Mark Shalafoo, from listener questions to some running gags. Insider stories, ambush life, that dad life, and respect for flags. Kick off the weekend, alright? It's the Growler Friday Show. It's Who Dey Dark.
All right, welcome into the latest edition of Who Dey Light. I am Paul Daner Jr., the Athletic, here with you, with my good friend and yours, Mark Shalafoo. What's going on?
This is our big post-NFL honors show. I'm going to need a little bit more enthusiasm from you.
Was that not enough? Intro. Was that not enough? I mean,
hello,
you're right. You're right.
Who Dey Light.
That was low energy. I apologize.
It was NFL honors last night.
Yeah,
the biggest show of the year.
Yeah. I feel like everybody's feeling a little more. It's sort of like if you did go to the big awards show and you drank too much probably and you wake up. That's sort of like I think Bengals fans feel a little bit hungover over last night's awards because it didn't go as well as they probably maybe some hoped it would have gone.
I didn't even know it was last night until I found my wife watching it on TV. I was like, are you serious? You might be the only person that's that locked into the NFL honors show. Did
she watch the red carpet?
I think she might have on her phone. She's very locked into that stuff.
Boy, you talk about rough television. Okay, that was. Yeah. I mean, look, it's like it's hard enough when it's Hollywood red carpets and it's awkward, but those people are professionally smooth, like naturally interacting, funny stars. This is take all of that hard and then just put it in with people that are really honestly not bad at all. And yeah. it was just tough to watch. But Joe Burrow was in his suit. It felt very Paris runway sort of like it had this like tie to the side. He had no shirt underneath. He had his little like necklace combo that he was working on. He was very fashion forward, very Paris. And so everybody could judge that. People wanted to talk. He looked really done with being in front of a microphone last night. I think he's been exhausted. When you've gone for a week plus just speaking into whatever microphone you can find your thoughts on the franchise, he just seemed kind of over microphones and speaking words into them last night.
Yeah, he's spent the whole week gently reminding the front office about what has to happen this offseason, and he's kind of hit his end of that. I would have liked to see a little bit more from him last night, though. Even attire-wise, I think like he bought the offensive line katanas. He should have had one for himself. Bring that to show off to the cameras. Because you know what? On the red carpet, they're not going to ask too many questions the second your hand goes to the hilt of that sword. You know, they're like, okay, we're done here, Joe. Go on to your seat. Go have some fun.
That's his signal. That's his signal for saying this interview's over. Is he just grabs
the sword.
Onto the sword. Yeah, I mean, missed opportunity. Honestly, missed opportunity. The joke from Snoop Dogg about the Bengals defense didn't exactly land well with Mr. Burrow.
No.
Yeah, he did. He did not take that well. Did not find it funny. How about the groan from the audience? Even the audience was like, damn, Snoop, you ain't have to go there on Joe.
I know. You can't attack the thing that he's most precious about, the defensive side of the ball. Surely he could not have seen that. He had to score 35 points just for them to be competitive. I bet he knows it. But yeah, he can't be shown cracking up on camera about how pathetic the defense played this year.
Yeah, but he's like, you don't need to be taking a it's a little different. Like when it's like the red carpet situation. When you're going to a roast and like it's one of these things and that all comedians are there, everybody knows what they're getting into. You're not expecting to feel a personal shot. To Joe Burrow, talking about the fact that you didn't make the playoffs because your defense was terrible feels like a little too personal, right? He's like, look, talk about the people that robbed my house if you want to, all right? Don't talk about my defense.
Right. Yeah.
That's where you really hit home. And you could, that reaction was not too thrilled with Mr. Snoop. My kids call him Snoopy Dog, which is
Snoopy Dog.
Snoopy Dog. Every time I see him, I call him Snoopy Dog now because ever since he was on the Olympics, when we watched the Olympics, they got so excited. And I wanted to be like, can I tell you about this man's first album that I really like kind of fell in love with music to?
He's not always been the Olympics guy, girls.
He's not always been Snoopy Dogg, the Olympics guy. No, he hasn't. Let me show you the Chronic. All right. So, but anyway, yeah, did not quite fun. So NFL honors happens, lots of goofiness, lots of stuff. But outside of the Chiefs and Eagles, and maybe more than the Chiefs and Eagles, is there a team that was more discussed this week than the Cincinnati Bengals? I mean,
Yeah,
it
there
just
was a
felt
lot.
like maybe we're just seeing it because we're kind of trained, our eyes are trained on seeing it, and we're all getting our algorithms. But like, whew, it certainly felt like every day was more conversation about the Bengals, their situations, their players, their contracts, what could happen. It was a lot of talking.
Radio Row was popping. We should take the podcast to Radio Row next year.
Yeah.
Get all sorts of people in here, hit them with some ambush light questions. And
well, I can tell you this: if the Bengals are in the Super Bowl next year, the Growler will have a spot on Media Row.
Okay,
There's
good.
no question.
That would really elevate. That'd be some good content for us to get out there for sure. But you did a great job on last week's show with the Duke Tobin translator. So, Trey Hendrickson was out there. He was on McAfee and had a lot of good stuff to say, a lot of interesting stuff to say. And then obviously Burrow was getting around a lot. So I've got some more quotes here. I want you to be the player translator this week.
Okay. So last week we did Duke Tobin translator. This week it's player translator. All right. I like it.
We're going to start with Trey Hendrickson because he was on McAfee, right? So here's the first quote. I think there's a time and place, and I think the offseason is a good spot to address these kinds of issues that do come up during the season when you're talking about OTAs or camp. You don't want to become a distraction for the team because inevitably the goal is to win a Super Bowl for Cincinnati.
I don't want to become a distraction, but you guys are going to mess around and make me a distraction if we don't do this soon. Okay? I don't want to be a distraction. I don't want to be the guy holding out. I don't want you to be on hat watch with me. I want to get this taken care of now. This is the time to do this. Let's hash it out, and let's do it now, sooner rather than later, because you don't want a distraction, and I will be one if we don't get this figured out.
So it's a little bit of a veiled threat, like the tantrum's coming. You better get me those chicken nuggets right away.
That is as politely as you can say I will be a distraction as possible. It's saying now is the time to do this because I don't want to have to be a distraction when it comes time to do OTAs and when it comes time to do training camp. We want to start fast. We want to win a Super Bowl. I'm about winning and the team, and the time to be about winning in the team is during those portions. Now is the time to get my contract right.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. This is the time. This is the time. Now is the time to do it. I agree with what he's saying, but that's exactly what he's saying.
All right. So this next quote from McAfee, what looks like this season, what that looks like this season, if it's something that we can agree on in terms, that would be great. Ideally, my wife and I would love to stay in Cincinnati. If it's something that helps the Bengals win the Super Bowl, if they get picks or anything like that, I just want to help win a Super Bowl for Cincinnati, whether I'm there or not.
Yes, that is. There are two options that you have here, Cincinnati Bengals. Extend me, trade me. I do not want to play on this current deal and play out this contract. I want to either help you win a Super Bowl here, and that's what I'll be happy with, extending me to a number that we both agree on, as the Duke Tobin translator talked about last week, what that means. Let's find that number. If we can't find that number, trade me for the picks that help you. I'm here to help you, okay? If you need me to be defensive player of the year and the two-time, sack leader and all this stuff to help be what gets you younger on defense, I don't care if that helps you have a better team. I'm here for you in that way too. I have no problem. I'm not going to stand in the way of you trading me. Okay, if that's what that is, if that's what you need to do, because you know what happens if you extend me or trade me in both scenarios, I get my money, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how he doesn't have to play out on this contract that is undervaluing him. Now, and I legitimately think that Trey has two things that he wants. He wants the money he deserves, and he wants to be able to focus on football when it's time. I legitimately do agree. I do think that it is genuinely coming from him here. Maybe the money more, but I don't know. That's just me speculating.
Yeah, so he's
those are the two things. I think those are the two things that he's just trying to say pretty clearly here. And those are the ways that he gets his money and can focus on football. And so do that now. trade me, extend me, whatever it is, but let's not ruin both of those things by dragging this out.
So it at least sounds like he's a little bit more open to the trade than maybe some people would have
he's not
thought.
going to
Like,
stand
he's
in the
fine.
way. I think that's clear. He's like, I'm not getting in the way you trade me. If you feel like that's the best thing, cool by me. I'd love to. I'd prefer to stay here. But if you think trading me is the right way for you guys to make the defense better and what you have to do to help these other guys get paid, if you feel that way, I'm not going to stand in your way. I'm sure he would go and help them find trade partners with his agent and go out there and get whatever the deal extension that he needs to get from another team.
All right. So what did you think about this one? Talking about, the dealings with the front office and what you hear and don't hear. He said he would have preferred to hear it differently than my dad texting me a tweet.
Yeah. He's saying, your communication sucks. And I'm just going to say that, players just want to feel like they knew what was coming. They heard it. You talked to them and didn't feel, they don't want to feel blindsided by stuff. And I feel like this is the thing that I hear most often from players in the aftermath of these types of things. It's not that they got mad about the end result, right? Like they'll eventually show up and they'll play and know that it goes there, whether we're, some of the things like Jonah Williams comes to mind to me, who he requested a trade. He was mad, but he showed up. He played right tackle. He busted his ass, and he eventually got his deal with Arizona, right? But he said before that the communication was bad. Like it was frustrating to felt like couldn't talk to them about what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. That nobody's talking to me about anything. All of this stuff like that comes up. This is something that seems to be repeated every year, is that they just feel like communication is not where they want it to be on these things. They want to feel like they're talking about where it's at, even if they're hearing bad news. And they don't feel like they're getting that from the front office in terms of these negotiations and what they feel like they care about their deals. Jonah's certainly not. This is not one of the first. Jonah's not DJ. DJ Reader, that was kind of part of his frustration last year was, do you value me? Do you not? Do you want me back? Where are you willing to, I don't think he felt that love. Right. And it kind of forced him to go to Detroit. Obviously T. Higgins with the trade request and feeling like he wasn't getting any negotiations happening in recent years. Jesse Bates, those both were kind of blamed on Mulugeta, right? But that was a frustration that he voiced. Obviously, Andrew Whitworth has very publicly voiced his frustrations with some of the communication that was ongoing there, not with Mike, but with Troy and Katie, and how that all went down at the end. We don't need to relitigate that today, but these are all just examples of how this seems to happen all the time. And, negotiations are weird like that. Like their feelings get hurt, but the fact that this does seem to come up over and over again, the communication thing it's frustrating from a player's point of view. And it seems like something that they need to be looking in the mirror a little bit more about as a front office in terms of how are we communicating? Do we need to rethink that? Or maybe they have and said, no, we don't. Like there needs to be a separation between front office and players because that stuff gets so ugly. But I would say there's a difference between separation and silence. And I think a lot of these guys feel like they feel silence and feel lost. Mark, one more thing. One time, I mean, this is stuff that happens. Like one time I had a player who was in a major spot. I'm not going to name names. A major spot in an offseason who DM'd me where I heard something that I had reported about their situation because he's like, I'm lost. They're not telling me anything. I don't know anything. Do you know something?
Dang.
Like begging me for some of the information. And it's like, how is it that way?
Yeah,
like, how is it that way that you're coming to me in my DMs to try to find out what's going on stuff that I'm reporting? And I get like that's what happens, but like, players should not feel that far in the dark, and you just sort of hear that across the board.
What I don't understand too is like I get maybe some high level negotiation stuff still going on, so there might not be a whole lot to report, but some of this seems like it would be basic. It wouldn't be that hard. Like if Duke Tobin is going to be talking to the media or, could at least anticipate that's coming up, obviously, why, give some of that information to the people you're going to be talking about ahead of time. That's not that hard. He has to know what's coming, what people want to know, what he's going to get asked when he does get asked questions. And, the same kind of information that reporters are after, it wouldn't be hard to communicate some of that stuff to the players to at least keep them in the loop. What do you think the problem is? You think they just don't care?
No, I think it's negotiation. Well, you don't want players taking information you give them and using it against you when they hit free agency or talk to other teams or whatever. There's reasons why you just want to try to keep everything that you're thinking close to the vest, because it can hurt you if not when you start getting too much information out there about what you're doing, what you're planning to do, what your numbers are. It more often than not can get used against you. But I don't think you have to go that far to just give some basic timelines to people and give a little more heads ups when things are being said. Like he said, when you're going to be speaking, like you're going to be talking about Trey Hendrickson when you're going to be doing unavailability, like a little heads up, like, hey, I'm going to be talking about you, or
We still
tell somebody
We're
to reach out to
reps,
him and
whatever,
say, look,
yeah.
like there's going to be stuff about you.
Just
We're
want you to
talk.
know that you're going to get
We're gonna
texts from
talk.
people and tweets from your dad. Like, give them a heads up. That's all
Heads
I'm
up to
saying.
the reps, like heads up to the agent, like, hey, we're going to talk soon. Just know I've got to address this. We'll talk. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so it doesn't feel so, like he said, a tweet that he gets from his dad. I mean, it's a frustration. And from a player's point of view, it has been a consistent complaint from their side for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, if a report's going to be coming out in the media, or if you're talking to a reporter, just give them that heads up. Like, that seems like such an easy one to do. But what do I know, Paul?
We don't know much. You know what I mean? Like, they keep it in. They've got
sometimes the obvious stuff doesn't always seem as obvious on the other side, perhaps.
Right.
What about some of these Burrow quotes? Can we talk about Burrow? This was Burrow from Breakfast
I can
Ball.
try to translate Joe Burrow.
He thinks he does have the cap space to get all these deals done. And he says, we have the cap space to get it done. I want to make it happen. Everybody involved, Trey, T, Jamar, Mike G, we all want to stay together. When you have guys that are motivated, I think you can get those things done.
Hey, Mike G, what's up? Gesicki's like, thanks, Joe. Putting me in the core. Love that. I mean,
that kind of came out of nowhere. Like the Mike
Joe
G
has shouted out Mike after the Steelers game. Joe made a pretty aggressive pitch for Gesicki and speaking about how important he's been. I think it was that game. It might have been Denver, one of those last two games. And so it wasn't the first time I'd heard that, but for Mike G to get just like tied in with Trey, T, and Jamar, he's got to be loving life on that. I just think it's kind of him saying, we will help you with the structural issues as long as you give us the money. We're willing to help this look however you feel like it needs to look. I'm willing to restructure, which he specifically said in that interview on Breakfast Ball on FS1. By the way, that show is truly god awful. That is, I've never even thought about that show. I honestly didn't know it existed. I was like, what the hell is Breakfast Ball? Like, this can't be. Is this like some sort of is this like a golf related thing? Is it? I didn't know what it was. Like, it's on FS1. Okay, so I like turn on FS1, and he's late for the interview, or late for the time they said he was going to be on. So I had tuned in at 7:35 in the morning to see what he's going to say, because I knew he was doing a bunch of them. I was like, let's just get out in front of it. I'll watch the first one, and then that way I don't have to probably watch all of them. So. But he's late, and so I had to watch essentially like 20 minutes of Breakfast Ball. Think about, like, if you had a bunch of dudes who were like in their 30s and it's homecoming and they're visiting the frat again and they're sitting around the living room telling stories, and then they like all do coke and are given microphones. I feel like that's kind of like what was happening on Breakfast Ball. I'm not sure what it was. I can only imagine the level of discomfort Burrow seemed to have in that particular setting, because it didn't exactly fit his vibe, if you will. But just my random aside on Breakfast Ball, truly terrible television.
But think about how confused people are going to be next year when the Bengals are in the Super Bowl and it's Who Dey Light on Radio Row, and all these other national writers are like, wow, we heard this player come up and they're talking to him about flags. What is this about?
It's fair. Look, who are we to judge? Like, I trust me. Who are we to judge? Like, we love our listeners, and we love that you guys keep coming back for whatever it is that we seem to be serving up on a regular basis. We're happy to do it. So I'm not. I shouldn't probably judge other. It wasn't my
take
cup
your
of tea.
breakfast ball shots.
Yeah, it wasn't my cup of tea. How about that? Wasn't my cup of tea.
What about Burrow?
No, the one I cut myself off here on that. I wanted to say, the one thing about the restructure comment that I think is important, that I think a lot of people misunderstand, is restructuring. We see so many teams do it. The Bengals don't like to do it. It essentially is taking on extra cash right now to clear cap space. The Bengals don't have cap space problems right now, as those of you that have used the mock offseason sheet know. They have plenty. The cap space is not the issue. Joe said it. I think Joe's been doing the mock offseason sheet.
Yeah.
He was well aware of how much cap space they had. Okay.
He's been sending in some sheets probably through a burner. Let me tell you, he is not excited about Sheldon Rankins on this team.
He, along with everyone else, cutting Sheldon Rankins. So that's when he talks about that. It's not the idea that he would maybe restructure right now, but there would be maybe years in the future that would behoove them when the cap numbers go up on, if they did a bunch of these deals, you would then need Joe's to come down. And you could structure it in a way where that in 2027, say, Burrow's going to need to get his cap number down, but you can push some of his cash up. You could defer whatever. Like, you could find ways to make it work for you. The Bengals don't like to push money around like that, and because you eventually have to take that cash you take on and spread it out over multiple years. They want to feel like they're getting the most out of the cap every year. They're the opposite of the Saints, who do this with every single contract. They push everything out, and it eventually catches up with them. There is a middle ground I think that the Bengals need to be using, but the point being that Burrow's willingness doesn't mean he's going to take less money at all. It means, look, I'm getting my 275. I don't care when, where, or how you give it to me. Like, I've got so much money right now. People are openly trying to take it from me. I'm buying Batmobiles and swords. Okay. I don't need more money today. So it's not about that.
Right.
It's not
He's
about
buying
taking
Batmobiles.
Give it to me whenever. I'm good. Okay. Like, I don't need to get it on the way that it's structured for me to get it right now. That's what it is. Move my money around. However, it helps to keep these guys is what restructure means.
I mean, it's still good to know that he's willing to do that restructure, because that does give you flexibility with some of those other deals you're making now, and knowing that down the road, Joe will play ball with you. It's probably also smart from his side too, to not, think like, well, the team will take care of me later and give me more money. No, you got to get your money, and then you can figure out how it comes to you later.
I don't want to go into the weeds in this, because I know people's eyes gloss over a little bit when you start talking about, like, caps and cash and private equity and like all escrow but like Patrick Mahomes is a good example. The Chiefs, this is the greatest deal ever. I mean, notice the connection. Tom Brady, who repeatedly took deals that were very, very helpful to his franchise, and now he was taking less money than he was probably worth at the time. And then Mahomes signing it's an incredible bargain when you consider who he is. But the way it's also structured, the team can take as much of a bite out of the apple of his contract almost every year as they want to, or feel like they can. They want to try to take as much as they can out every year. But if they need it for something in particular, like it was Chris Jones one year or whatever, they can take a little bit more out of Patrick's and push some down the line. They're kind of using that as their way to do whatever they need to do, depending on where their money situation is at. That feels like something the Bengals should be trying to do with Joe Burrow as much as they can within what they built. So that's just kind of a quick little synopsis.
One of the things that really struck me is that just how much he was talking about, like he is confident that the front office can get all this stuff done and can get it taken care of. This is Burrow on First Take. He said the cap is going up each year. We just got new TV deals, and we all want to stay together. So we're all going to do what it takes to do that. And we have great players that have done great things and deserve to be paid. How are you translating that?
Don't cry poor on me. No excuses here. You're not poor. The cap's going up. These TV deals, these gambling deals, like there's more money coming in from everywhere. We all know what our market value is. You have the space to do it. No excuses. I think that, to me, that's what that is. That's look, it's cap's going up. We're not, we're saying we'll structure it however you want to. We just want to get the cash, right? So if they're willing to do whatever it is that the Bengals need to help make the structure work, you're gonna pay people. Yeah, there's no reason to have excuses with that. And I think the confidence that he's stating, I think he feels like he's had the right conversations to make him confident to come out and say this stuff. Yeah, he's applying pressure, unlike we've seen anybody really do in the history of this organization, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's applying pressure, but also I think he's doing it from a place of information of where the Bengals stand on it. They do talk to Joe. Joe knows all this stuff. He knows the inner workings. He understands it, I think. And the fact that he's coming out saying this stuff, knowing it, I think makes him feel like we're willing to do it. You're willing to do it. It's just a matter of it actually getting done. This is certainly more optimism than I felt like we heard coming from the other side with Duke last week. But, both sides could just be essentially playing the leverage game at this point, like the negotiation games. Duke's going to downplay it. Joe's going to try to put pressure to get it done. And you end up in the middle. They hope.
So when you hear them, when Joe's saying stuff like, we all want to do what it takes to get there, right? We all want to stay together. That's got more to do with how they structure their deals than like Jamar and T both taking significantly less than they would get on the open market.
Yeah, I've also heard them. They want to get paid what they deserve to get paid. Yeah. Like we deserve to get paid this. We want to he wants to see his guys get paid what they deserve. That is part of this. So I don't think this is about less money, at all. I mean,
being flexible with the structure and
I think it's about how do you want us. As long as we get the money, we don't care what the package comes in. I mean, they do within reason. I mean, there's guarantees that they're going to need to get and what have you. And when it comes down to how much are they willing to play with the structure is probably the end up question. And how close are the Bengals able to get to the numbers that they say that they're deserved? Is there a difference in how the Bengals value a player like Trey, like T, versus how the player is valued by the market, right? Is where it ends up. You end up having the fight and the one that ends up causing the breakup over those discussions, and they haven't, obviously gotten to that yet. So it's a matter of whether they get there or not. But I don't think it's a matter of, there's this. They're willing to work with a lot of stuff when it comes to structure and work together to make it all work together. I mean, they kind of unionized, which is kind of fun. Like they got together, like we've been talking and we're kind of working together on this now to try to, maybe this will help the communication.
Yeah.
If we all come together arm in arm and say, we're all here as kind of a group deal. How can you make our group deal work together? Is it easier to make us work together as a group than it is to work with all of us individually? And Joe, the one who's sort of the spokesman applying the pressure, he's like the president of the union, who's like standing out there in the front and saying like, these are our demands, right? You will listen to us, because he wields the actual power and knows that the power is in numbers, and they're happy to let Joe speak for them on their behalf. Trey had his talking points about T when he went out there to McAfee. It was like
they were on the same page.
They've definitely been talking. Like they have a group chat. There's no doubt. Like they're all in it together.
I would like to imagine like all of them showing up to talk about this with the front office, and then just the Bengals people being so confused that Gesicki's with them as well. Like, oh, Mike, we're having a conversation here. We got to talk to
Mike. I think you're next week. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think that we need to start, now that he's been part of this, like it's always T is a need, T is a need. We got to start pushing G is a need. G is a need. T and G both need. So G is a need. Let's get it going so we can bring back the big four. That's what it is.
I'm here. I have thoroughly enjoyed Mike Gesicki, the person. And so selfishly rooting for me, I definitely want Mike G back. I love Mike G. He's great.
NFL honors was, last night, big Joe Burrow won comeback player of the year. And I was looking to see how he held on to that trophy. Does he have any wrist issues with it? I know he can't hold water bottles the way that people like. How's he holding the trophy? Is it two hands? Is it one? Does he have a glove on before he holds the trophy? Looked
Did you see he
pretty
did a grip
solid.
strength? Did you see he did a grip strength thing
I did not.
on Media Row? So like there is a place, when you go to Media Row down there, like every place has some gimmick that they're doing with everybody that comes through and whatever. Well, this one had like a grip strength thing where you like hold it down at your side and then it like measures your strength number. And then so they measure everybody by a number. And Joe's was great. It was actually it was like almost the exact same as Justin Jefferson's.
Okay.
It was like, yeah. So no worries about wrist grip strength. Yeah. No judgment of how he was holding the trophy or anything.
I don't like
that.
them putting him through that sort of thing. Now, if he had walked around with a katana and put his hand on the sword, nobody's asking him to do a grip test. Then they're like, I see you gripping the sword. You can move along to your next interview. That's fine.
Yes. Apparently he needed that to be like grip strength. How about this grip and just grab onto the sword?
See how
or you just hear the shing. Like that's what you really need is him to actually pull it out of the sheath.
He got comeback player of the year. No MVP for him. That was Josh Allen.
Yeah, Josh Allen. How about this? Yeah. So this is okay. I'm going to probably end up in a weird place here because there's a lot to digest from last night's awards voting. So Lamar Jackson wins. These are the same AP voters for All-Pro. Had Lamar Jackson first team All-Pro over Josh Allen. Okay. Same voters voting for MVP had Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson for MVP. That never happens. Like almost never happens. So everyone was stunned. Probably shouldn't have been stunned because I don't think Lamar was there. I didn't see him. And Josh was getting lots of shots with him and Haley Stenfeld. But it was like, how is that possible? How are you voting a person All-Pro first team over another one? And then essentially the same voting separately. It doesn't make a ton. I don't really understand that. It was surprising. Here's the other one though. So Jamar Chase wins the Triple Crown.
Yes.
And we discussed, I think I discussed on here maybe a couple weeks ago or towards the end of the season. Look, his case for Offensive Player of the Year is very, very much being underrated. I don't understand why it wasn't getting more love up against Saquon. I mean, there's been 9 rushers to rush for 2K like Saquon did, and Jamar's only the 5th ever to get the Triple Crown in a league that's now about passing and follow the money. The receivers are more valuable than ever and more valuable than running backs and all of this stuff. Cooper Kupp last won Offensive Player of the Year when he had the Triple Crown in 2021. The last Triple Crown winner was Cooper Kupp. He won with 70% share of the whole vote. Got 0 first place votes.
That's crazy.
0.
Crazy.
He finished 3rd with 34% share of the votes, which is not bad actually historically. So the other Triple Crown winners, Jerry Rice in 1990 finished 5th with 6%. Sterling Sharp in 92, who congratulations to him. He is the senior vote in the hall last night. Finished 4th with 7%. Steve Smith in 2005 actually was unranked. He wasn't even in the running.
Crazy.
Steve Smith, Triple Crown winner in 2005, wasn't even in the
it.
running for Offensive Player of the Year. Cooper Kupp won it, and now Jamar finishes 3rd. But that's a tough one for me to understand how not one of the 50 was like, the receiver appears to be the second most important position in the game. Jamar he didn't just win the Triple Crown. He blew everybody away in every category. They moved him all around the yard. He did a million different things. I mean, this season was legendary, and nobody thought it was better than someone running for 2,000 yards behind the best offensive line in football. And that doesn't come off as any disrespect to Saquon. Like, cool. Like, I'm fine with him winning the award. No one was like, hey, did you see Jamar's season? Though, like, I don't understand how it's that kind of a slam dunk. And, you don't even finish 2nd. And maybe it's the same thing that Burrow dealt with the MVP. Like, look, you don't make the playoffs. It's going to be different for you. You're viewed as a failure. But boy, I don't know. I felt like offensive player of the year was supposed to be like best player, but let's take away that whole valuable to your team part of the conversation, that they do with MVP, which makes it a quarterback award.
Yeah.
And which really that offensive player of the year needs to be best offensive non-quarterback. That's what that award needs to be. That said, stunning. There wouldn't be one vote for Jamar. You win that. You blow everyone away in all three categories of the Triple Crown. Highlights galore.
In an era when that is the more important position, like, 20 years ago, yeah, sure. I get if a receiver that won the Triple Crown maybe didn't overtake the star running back from them, or 30 years ago, it was a different game. Now it's way more impressive to pull down the Triple Crown. It's harder. And the fact that he did pull that off to not get one, that's crazy. It is crazy.
It is crazy. So the other thing to come from last night is the Hall of Fame is announced. Now, this has been obviously a sense of frustration for Bengals fans, and I have voiced my frustration many, 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 many times about the voting process here. Well, guess what? They took an already broken process, and somehow, I actually didn't think this was possible, Mark. I didn't think it was possible to take something that was completely shattered and broken and make it worse. It was like, you see the shards of glass on the ground? We're going to pour them on top of people. Like, rather than just leave them on the ground and make people walk over them, we're gonna lift them up in a box, and then we're gonna empty the box on top of a huge crowd of people. That's what it feels like, the decision that was made in the changes that they made to the voting. And so they go from already ridiculous that the same 50 people have been deciding the Hall of who's the best forever. The same people with all their biases and all their lines and all the politics that end up happening behind the scenes to lobby and force votes to go certain ways. And you get teams, the Bengals are a prime example, that end up getting very much left out. Philosophies that end up changing things, like good players on great teams that went to the Super Bowl are going to get in over great players on good teams that didn't go to the Super Bowl, right? That's been consistent across years and years and years, how you end up with almost 30 Steelers in the Hall of Fame and Anthony versus Anthony Munoz. Okay. And now Ken Riley. And so that said, they then have changed the voting this year to make it so they get down to the final 7 of the modern day, which Willie Anderson was a part of. And then from that, they have the voters pick 5, and you have to get 80% of that threshold in order to be inducted. Deion Sanders went off a couple of years ago about how too many, it's watering down the hall. Too many people are getting in. It should be a higher standard. And this was that they came up with. So they ended up with the smallest amount of people that could possibly getting in. And Willie Anderson takes the hit on this, because only 3 modern day, they have voted 5 people in for 17 straight years. Like, that's the number. That's what it is. You get 5 modern day people get in every year. And even with that, there's a backlog of great players that aren't getting in, that are forgotten. Now only 3, and Willie was amongst the 4 that get left out of the vote.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder and harder. And then you have the seniors, which is they pick coaches, contributors, and some that have been retired for more than 25 years. Kenny Anderson has been stuck in this forever, and it's been notable how it's insane that he did not get in. 4 passing titles, you name it. I mean, it's crazy. And he's been on the cusp. People have been assuming he's going to get in forever, and he hasn't. Now they've made that harder, where there's 5 of those people, and they have to choose 3 amongst the 5, and you have to hit the 80% threshold. Kenny Anderson's not getting in.
Yeah.
Like,
that's such a bummer.
This closes, if they stick with this, it feels like it closes the door on so many people from the seniors, because now they got to fight coaches. You got to fight seniors against coaches. And then it just goes back to this 50-person group. They're not the senior committee that studied it and picked people. They don't know as well as the senior committee, who all they do is keep track of these older players that need to get in. It's like, now you're asking those people to do more that were already screwing up the modern day one.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. And so now next year, Drew Brees is in his first year. Larry Fitzgerald will be in his first year. Those are first ballot guys that are probably going to get in and deserve to. Like that just will continue to happen. Geno Atkins is up next year. Now I don't think he's going to be a first ballot or even a finalist right away, but he certainly has a very good chance of getting in eventually when you consider he has all decade, 2 all-pro seasons, game record, 3 technique, all that stuff. Oh boy, that's a tough one, man. Like that's tough to see that's where it's going to go. We'll see if they change it or if the voters figure out the math better. Like, but it's going to be more politics, more under the table scheming to get the math to work the right way, to get the most people in. None of the stuff that matters, where you should just expand the entire voting pool like baseball does, have it circulate so it's not the same people voting every single year. It's just a majority of the people that qualify to vote, and let that be it. Instead, you get this, and people like Willie Anderson suffer, who deserve best tackle, right tackle of his generation, deserves to be in. He's been a finalist 4 straight years, and it's going to be 5 now, because if you make it to that 7 and don't get voted in, you automatically are a finalist the next year. You're in the conversation the next year. So he's already a finalist for next year. Cool. Great. But still, he's going to be a finalist 5 years in a row. Like, guys that are finalists 5 years in a row probably should be in.
Yep.
Like, if they're good enough to be there, they probably should be in at some point. So I hope Willie gets in. He deserves it. His case, as an offensive lineman, it's harder than ever because you're fighting guys with stats and you don't have stats. But this was a tough scene for the Hall of Fame, and tough for somebody like Willie to take in, because it's only going to get harder as more big names start showing up on the ballot.
How does that process work? Is it like the team that can help make that campaign for him and start harassing all these voters to be like, hey, here's the real case, don't be an idiot? Or is it just kind of on Willie to make his own case? And
no, so everybody gets presented. So like Jeff Hobson is the local presenter here. He's been presenting Willie and done an unbelievable job. He cares about it so much and has done such a good job of making sure that the voters know and hear it. And you then eventually as a presenter take it personal. Like, did I not do enough? And he works year round to try to make sure he talks to the right people, has the right stats, has everything he can to keep making the case over and over and over again. And he has, and it's been working. Like, Willie has progressed from off the chart to now finalists for 5 years and are going to be 5 years in a row. It's just really hard. That's it though. Everybody, the one person presents you, and then the voters kind of go from there. But it's the voters' job to know the cases as well, beyond what the presentations are. But so that's how that works. And lobbying, like, you can't just like spam email somebody into the Hall of Fame, like going after
and try
people like that. I feel like with the Jungle to the Hall stuff and all the stuff that the Bengals fan groups have done to try to bring these cases to light, it's been unbelievable, more than I've seen anywhere else. That the Bengals fans have done more to try to bring these cases to light than anywhere you'll ever see. So I think they've done a good job of it. But there's only so much you can do. It comes down to the broken voting process.
We are more than 40 minutes into Who Dey Light. Are you ready for some Growl Pal questions?
We did it again. It's a
newsy time. NFL honors.
It is really newsy. It's really newsy. It's hard to keep up with the news, honestly. Like, it's hard because it's like kind of news. It's all kind of news. Like, Joe Burrow going out there and saying the same thing he's said since December 9th isn't news, but he's saying something highly provocative. Yeah. And so it is kind of like, even just repeating that stuff is kind of news. So it's like, how much, I don't know. It needs to start resolving itself, Mark, because I think where we're at with it. It needs to start resolving. So T is first up. The T situation getting resolved is next, and we need that to happen quick.
The dominoes will start to fall. And listen, keep sending your questions to thegrowlerpodcast@gmail.com. We got some great ones from the Growl Pals. Some of them we might have to kick to next week or respond off air. But we got some good ones. Let's jump into them. The first one's from Tyler. Oh, he's a high school teacher. He wants the Growler to come to career day at his high school. Can we do that? Can we just get like all 5 of us in there and
do a show? Would they let us do a show from there?
Or just to talk about the podcast, just plug it for a while and talk about how great we are and get all these kids on board, get their dads to listen.
I'm in.
We got to go as a team, though. That's the important thing. He's got a real football question, too. He says he hates to go to the darkest of places, but with Joe being so insistent on all of this working out and everybody getting paid, is there not a doomsday scenario that involves the ownership fumbling this, angering Joe forcing his way out, and then the new lease that Joe built is no longer a thing? The team is on their way to another city. Thanks so much for everything you do.
Oh, yeah.
From Tyler.
It's very dark. It's very dark. I know people want to go there in their head. Like, everybody knows this person. Like, no, I'm not saying Tyler's this person, but there's somebody who always does this, right? Who always goes to like the darkest place of any situation. Like, what if we go to this party though, and like someone is so mad that they set the whole house on fire and we're stuck inside of it and we're in a room and we can't get out, and then we all just burn. Like, maybe we shouldn't go. Right?
We're all gonna burn at this party.
And that's kind of how I feel about this. Like, it's okay. I guess there is a doomsday scenario where I just don't see a scenario where the Bengals are leaving this greater Cincinnati area. Like, I know people want to go there because that's the worry when these angry emails are being exchanged between Troy Blackburn and the commissioners, and everybody's talking about that. And we know the flirting with Baltimore that happened in the 90s and all that stuff. Like, I just don't really see that happening. It's very dark. I do remember the house that Blake built, where it was like the Bengals getting better helped get the deal across. That was with a vote and all that stuff. And so the Bengals are going to be good at some point in time. They'll get this deal worked out here. I really do believe that. I don't know if it'll be how many of the 2-year rolling extensions they'll have to hit, but at some point, the right combination of the team being good, the commissioners being right, the negotiation hitting the right sweet spot, and whatever, everything falling into place is going to happen. They have 5 2-year rolling extensions they can hit on this thing. They can keep kicking the can if they want to. That's a lot of time to make it right. And they just don't want to leave. Like, it's not a thing that they have any interest in doing. It doesn't behoove them in any way. So I know people want to go there. I don't think you go there. And then, hey, DeWine's out here like, look, how about this? We take the gambling tax, we kick it from 20% to 40%, and just give that money to these stadiums that the Browns are trying to get money to build stadiums. The Bengals need money for stadiums. The teams need to be here. Let's take it from the degenerates, give it to the teams.
The house that Blackjack built. Let's go.
That's right. That's kind of what it feels like, and that's okay. Hey, I'm for it. You know who's nervous here in this plan though? If it goes through,
who's that?
Weed people.
They're coming for your vice next.
Look, we're coming for you. They're like, look, they're all got to get together and say, all right, we got to stop smoking weed at the tailgates. They're going to know that we like that here too. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to
like gambling and getting high before games. Okay. Like, anybody that's walked through a tailgate lot, any stadium in America at this point is well aware of what's going on down there. So they're like, God, they're always we're new enough. They can come for us now. We're just happy to have our stuff legal. Now they're going to come and they're going to double our tax too. That's coming next. You just know it.
It's going to be 1-6 stadium though. When they do that, they take all the degenerate money and it's going to be pretty awesome.
There better be some kiosks in there is all I'm saying.
Yeah, for both. Kiosks for both. All right, next question. Hey, Paul, love the content. A few questions. Follow up from the rewatch reaction with Charlie this week. If the Bengals decide to trade Trey, who's the top free agent they should target to backfill him? And watching the defense this year, specifically in pass rush downs, it seems like everybody but Trey was either afraid to get out of position, so they just held their gaps, or they were coached to stay home and let Trey rush the quarterback. Is there any merit to either of those theories? The idea being like that some of these guys
Yeah.
like Osai and Murphy have more ability. They just were not instructed to show it.
Yeah, we would hear from Lou Anarumo a lot about the style that he asks them to rush in containment and not just trying to blow through into the backfield and leave a pass rush, an escape lane wide open, about gap integrity when you're pass rushing and stuff. And so there are different styles. Now, what exactly Al Golden will want to do in that regard is probably to be determined, but that can be a part of maybe some of what you see when Myles Garrett can't get that last bit finished in his pass rushes to get sacks, but he is moving into the pocket at an okay rate. Maybe that's part of that he feels like he's just doing what he's taught. I mean, that's the part where maybe new coaching can get more out of guys, where they can see better ways to use their strength or what's slowing them down. A new voice can help that stuff. Somebody like Myles is obviously someone you'll talk about a lot in that regard. Maybe that's part of it. I mean, at a certain point, you need to just be able to get back there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's guys. I mean, there's guys out there in free agency. I think that you'll see some guys that get let go that we don't even think about right now, that you could trade for. That could be part of a deal. As far as free agents specifically out there, Clavin Chason, Aziz Ojulari, Dayo Adeyangbo. Sorry, I try to get all the names right. Malcolm Kuntz. I mean, there's a bunch. I liken this, if they did that, I liken this to when they were choosing between Carl Lawson and Trey Hendrickson and got that one really right. When they signed Trey the first time, and the Bengals were on, this group, they were on Shaq Lawson. When he first became a free agent, he ended up blowing up, and they just couldn't. The money ended up not getting right. He goes to Tampa, Shaq Barrett. I apologize, wrong name. Shaq Barrett, and he ends up blowing up in Tampa, and they could have had him, but the money didn't. But the evaluation was right. They've had a little bit of a knack over the years in free agency for seeing the edge guy that could be about to break out and nailing it. And Trey is obviously the most obvious example. But I think they're going to need to tap into that again. They're, if they went that route. If they win, and they really need to go either way. I mean, I think they need to get another pass rusher either way. Draft, there needs to be another draft pick on top of that. I mean, they need to be replenishing regardless, with probably a draft pick and a free agent. But I think pinpointing and finding that guy, they're going to be tasked with that again. They need to go get it right, like they maybe have a couple of times in the past.
Run, pass, or boot the following. Which of the three big contracts on the plate this season is most likely to get ugly/contentious with holdouts, trade requests, agent leaks to the media, etc.? So how would you rank those big three of Chase, Higgins, or Hendrickson? Run, pass, or boot. Which one's getting the most contentious?
Chase, because it's already gotten contentious, right? And he's going to be even more mad if he has to go fight for his right to get paid again. We did this once. I do not want to do that again.
They already said too that he's going to get what he's going to get. He's going to get a lot.
And I think he'll be last in. Okay, so of the three, T's going to get settled here sometime before free agency. Trey, I think he hopes to get settled early. I think it could get. So it benefits the Bengals to settle that quicker because, like you said, if they want to make a trade or make any decision there, it's better to do that earlier so they can adjust in free agency and in the draft. Jamar can kind of sit out there, and then they can find a way to get that done, and it could be the one that pushes down the line. And if something didn't go the way the union, the Big Five union, decided that it should have gone, if that's already happened and they're trying to get Jamar done and it's not going the way negotiations want to go, and he's facing the idea of having to do that junk in camp again, that would not be a good scene.
Yeah, that would be rough.
And so just because it's already happened, I would say that Jamar would be the most likely. I think T would be the least likely because he's a free agent.
Yeah.
I mean, they could tag him. I just don't see them. I don't think there's any thought that on either side they want to tag him with the idea of him playing out the season on it and doing that to him again. I don't think they're going to go there. I don't think anybody plans on it going there with T. And so for that sake, it wouldn't get contentious. They would either tag and trade or get the long-term deal done.
All right. In the interest of brevity, I have removed a lot of the extra praise that people heap on us at the top of emails. Although I did want to mention that I've loved lately, we get like a number of these emails where it's like, hey, I just wanted to say when you announced Who Dey Light, I was certain it was going to suck. I was super wrong. Love the show now. Sorry about that.
Those are my favorite ones. I love high haters, right? Hey, don't doubt us. Don't doubt us.
Here's our Ambush Light question this week. This is, all right, he says, Paul and Mark, I'm reaching out to express my eternal gratitude for your exceptional work, keeping us informed and entertained on Who Dey Light and all of your pods dating back to Scribe Sessions.
Wow.
He spent very many dog walks and drives to work, laughing out loud, nodding his head in agreement, or muttering those assholes about the latest target of Bengals fans hire. Since we're about to lose T and watch the Chiefs three-peat, I'd like to pitch an idea. Who Dey Dark? Like the Greater Skyline ice cream, let's spice things up. Mark can share his dirtiest jokes about why other AFC North teams keep employing alleged sex offenders, or his wildest stories of debauchery by other comics, of course. Then I can ambush Paul repeatedly to channel the full Paul Downer Jr. energy. You can bring in some guest stars like Charlie to break down Quentin Spain's blocking technique, or lack thereof, against Aaron Donald on that crucial fourth down play in the Super Bowl. Jay wouldn't have to look far for some excruciating stats to send fans into a spiral, and he can recite them over his favorite Slipknot tracks. Perhaps this is too negative for a show talking about waving Valentine's Day flags and Disney vacations, but screw it. Beers at BetMGM Sportsbook, Nation Bar and Grill, and pints of Graders will soon brighten our spirits enough to all feel like optimistic Bobby heading into the season. But for now, we need to wallow in the postseason darkness. Bring on the expletives and the memories of drafting John Ross and Achilles Smith and David Klingler. Now that is something we'll all pay for.
Man,
Who Dey Dark.
Wow. Shout out to that one. That is great. All the drops. I mean, all the drops of things from the past, from us, from Scribe Session down to Paul Downer Jr. to Jay's Sad Stats. See, Jim O made an appearance in this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there is I gotta credit you. Well done on that. I'm here for it. Look, I think we need to take a time where Bengals fans aren't so fragile. Right now,
it's too newsy.
Very fragile state of affairs with the fan base right now. Okay, everybody's a little on edge. I don't think we can go to that kind of a spot, but I'm willing to do this as an off-season show.
Who Dey Dark, yeah.
Who Dey Dark for a Friday, and we could do it for multiple Fridays. We could do it as a series, maybe a 4-part series.
Oh
yeah. What's the darkest part of Who Dey Dark? Like, we could just see how dark we could take it. I'm definitely here to put that on the off-season list.
Who Dey Dark.
Put that down. Who Dey Dark. It's on the list. I love this idea. Fantastic. Way to bring it.
Excellent emails from the Growl Pals. Send those to the growlerpodcast@gmail.com. We have a bunch more that we will get to coming up in future episodes. How did your trip end up going to Wisconsin? How'd the sets go? I know Wisconsin was great. Yeah, we both shows were packed. Ryan Hamilton was a Saturday show. He's got a hilarious special on Netflix, so go check that out if you haven't seen it. It was great to be away from the kids for 3 days with the missus, which was fun. And so, yeah, it was a great weekend. Wisconsin was awesome. I'm in St. Louis this weekend. That's sold out. And then Monday's show sold out. But I did want to plug this. If you live in Bloomington, Indiana, I'm at the Comedy Attic February 13th. Bloomington's a great club. Kind of a tricky market, but it's a great early Valentine's Day idea. So if you know anybody that lives in Indiana, tell them to come to that show. And I'm at Commonwealth Sanctuary in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, February 15th. Great, also Valentine's Day weekend show. That'll be really fun. So get tickets to both of those now. And I'm coming to Grand Rapids, February 20th through 22nd. And then I'm coming to North Carolina to the Cary Theater just outside of Raleigh on March 21st. And Asheville on March 22nd. So I think tickets are on sale for all of those. Go get those now.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome. The Commonwealth, that's the That's a fun little venue that you guys did. Did you guys just have Joke Gym on Tuesday?
Yes, Joke Gym, first Tuesday of every month. So you can come see how jokes get made and watch myself and friend of the show, Josh Sneed, and a couple of the other best comics in Cincy punch up jokes for all the newer comics as they do a set and then get feedback. It's a fun one. It's a fun room.
Yeah, love it. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Good stuff.
Before in dad life, before Wisconsin, right? I was in Columbus. Right. Yeah. And so I forgot to mention this about that because I was doing shows and we also had the gymnastics trip, right? The gymnastics meet. So I'm in this hotel with the family and it's all like girls running around because there was a cheer competition at the Columbus Convention Center and there was a gymnastics meet and something else. So all of these people at the same hotel. And then I saw a bus pull up to the lobby and a bunch of like young, tall bros got out. And I'm like, oh, I played ice hockey for years. I pegged them as a hockey team right away. I was like, boom, this is a hockey team. They're either here for like, maybe they're playing against OSU or maybe a high school tournament's happening. I almost went up to them. I was going to ask them if they were a high school hockey team. They were the Los Angeles Kings. I'm glad that I did not. I almost walked up to a bunch of professional athletes like, you guys here for high school hockey in Ohio? That's surely what you guys are. Just a bunch of millionaire hockey players.
Oh, I really wish you would have actually done that. Because someone would have been like rolling video on that interaction and they probably would have beat you up.
Yeah.
I feel like that was what a professional hockey player might do.
They did. Yeah. And you know what? They lost to the Blue Jackets. So maybe they wouldn't have lost if they were all pissed off at local Ohioans, insinuating they were only high school level athletes. So I'm glad I didn't. I'd say
maybe
win.
Yeah. Or maybe they would have won if they were playing the Centerville Elks. You know?
Yes.
That also probably would have
Charles down 42-0.
Yeah. I love it. We had a question sent to us by an emailer that belonged in Dad Life, so I thought I'd drop it in here for us to kind of give us a little topic to jump off. It says this was from Cody. When did your guys' kids learn your first name, and what was your feelings about it? My son just turned 2 and just learned it. I don't know if he picked it up from my wife or parents, in-laws, etc., but he's wearing it out like a rented mule. Cody this, Cody that, Cody. At first, I was like, oh, wow, I learned my name. How cool. But now going on a week, it's making me feel like the stepdaddy. I know it will fade back to daddy. The same thing happened with my daughter around that age. Any thoughts? I'm a lean into it guy. Like I don't want to be Paul, for my entire life. I'm really happy. The nicknames are going to go through different zones. I'm currently, I was bruh for a while, which was tough.
Bruh's
tough. I think we talked about this on here, but at that time, like they didn't really understand the negative connotation in bruh. A lot of their friends had been saying it for whatever reason. And so they started calling me bruh. And I was like, only because I don't think you quite understand what you're saying. Am I okay with this? And it was funny every time they would do it. Like, like when you coming to dinner, bruh? And it's like, okay, I don't like that. Now though, I'm big fella.
Big fella.
Big fella.
I love it.
Big fella. And I kind of like being big fella. Now I know this is a direct Bluey offshoot. Big fella is it shows up in Bluey. And so I'm okay, but I'm okay with it. I like big fella. I'd be comfortable being big fella my entire life.
What do they call your wife?
Mommy.
See, now that's the problem, right? It's like if they've got a friend over and they're introducing you like, oh, this is my mom and big fella. That makes you sound like a stepdad. You guys are in there for like a school event when the parents get to come in and your daughter's like, yeah, this is my mom and big fella. They're here to support me.
Yeah. I'm okay with it. Like I like it, but yeah, I think there would be a point when I wouldn't be okay, like with them introducing me by my first name. Like I don't need that when they're 10. Certainly, if when they're teenagers and they're calling you by your first name, it's just straight disrespect. It's just straight disrespect.
That sounds weird too. If your teenager's complaining to her friends about, the parents. And she's like, oh, Steve and Carol have been awful this week. You're like, we don't need that. That's just weird.
Yeah, no doubt.
I get it, Cody. It's a problem.
Hang in there.
Hopefully that they call your wife something weird too, so it's not Mom and Cody, because that does sound very stepdaddy too.
Oh man! All right, that'll wrap us up. We
did it.
It's just a newsy time right now. You know, I wish we were more.
We kept it a little lighter this week, though. We had some fun.
A little
with it.
lighter. We were trying to.
We had some
trying
fun.
to. I wish we could have more dad lives and ambush and dumb run passer boots. There were some really good ones that we had to kick down the line that we're gonna get to. So you just know if you feel like you sent in a great question and you're stunned you didn't get it, we can't get them all in. There's so many, but also some really good ones have been pocketed into a couple future episodes. There's just, with all the talk happening right now,
a lot of talk.
It's a lot. There's a lot to get to and touch on news wise. So we had to make sure we get to all of that. That's just the state of it. Who Dey Light morphs. Sometimes it's a little more serious. Sometimes it's a lot lighter.
It's very malleable.
It's just kind of wherever we're at, and that's where we're at right now. All right, so we will be back on Monday with Rewatch Reaction with Charlie, and then we'll continue going down this line of all of these contracts and everything else that needs to get worked out over the course of the offseason. So almost there. All right, thanks everybody for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.